Good morning and welcome to Lost Creek Canyon Ranch, a thriving 400-acre facility in the heart of Coachella Valley. Hello, my name is John Bishop and I am the videographer and content creator for the ranch. And this morning we're going to be out with Mike Riskin, the owner of the ranch, as he gets started and does his rounds every day. We're going to ask a few questions. You guys are coming along with? Let's go.
Well, strictly by accident is the best answer I can give. We're in the antique business now, as you know, and one of our regular clients came in several years ago and started talking about this ranch that he knew about, full of antiques, and there was a need to sell some of them. So we thought, well, it certainly would make for an interesting field trip to run up there and take a look at this place. And we did so the following week, and while the antiques were okay, we thought, frankly, that the ranch itself was spectacular, and it turned out that the ranch was available. There were some financial reasons why the seller was anxious to move it. And so we kind of quickly turned our attention from the antiques to the ranch, and a month later somehow we found ourselves ranchers. The owner was an invalid elderly woman who really had sort of spent the last dozen years or so in bed. She was substantially incapacitated. So the ranch had 10 years of deferred maintenance. There were no animals. Everything was overgrown. The buildings, the outbuildings, and the residential properties were all in terrible condition. So the whole place was a project of the first magnitude. And like a lot of things like this, if you realize what you're getting into in the beginning, you probably wouldn't have done it. All right, good morning, girls. We separate mostly the girls from the boys. There's one big rooster in there you can see with a mixture not only of chickens in here, but of guinea fowl as well. All the little uniformly colored gray birds are guinea fowl that were raised by hens. And so as it happens, we have a little incubator. So when we find a guinea fowl egg, it goes in the incubator. 25 days later, as often as not, we wind up with a little bitty guinea fowl. And we take those, put them under the brooding hens, and gradually they come to adapt to each other. And we wind up with these intermediate sized guinea fowl, and eventually they'll get released and run around with the rest of the herd. So that's kind of how it works. But in general, this is a well-fed, safe, comfortable bunch of chickens, and they're very productive. So we typically get, gosh, on a low day, a half a dozen eggs, sometimes as many as a dozen and a half. So most of what you see here are hens, and then across the fence line there are a handful of roosters, which really don't do much productive, but they're around, and we keep a few anyway in case we need to replenish our hen stock. So let's see if we can't get some of these fellows. And over here, we can take a quick look at kind of our budding crop. You can see in that lower cage there, we've got a combination of little tiny chicks and also guinea fowl that are probably a week or 10 days old or so. And they're looked after by one of the hens whose instinct it is to sort of protect them and keep them safe and fed. And so they're together, they make a good combination, and that works nicely. And then again, as they get a little bit bigger, they go into that upper cage. You can see those tend to be sort of a month or 6 weeks old. Again, there's a big one that looks after the rest. And all of those are healthy enough to be out on their own, but not so independent as to be left with the big ones. And so as often as not, we'll give them a little more time to grow and strengthen, and then we'll let them out as well. And then to your right in that cage is a guinea fowl that was born with a bad leg. And unfortunately, he just can't get around very well, and he gets picked on by all of his brethren. And so he's in there, unfortunately not very comfortable, but he has his company during the evenings, and it's about as good as we can do to give him a life. But he knows his place, and we'll pick away at the carrots, the little feed that we throw in there once in a while. But by and large, he's just sort of our charity case. So I use little cut up carrots. All the birds seem to love carrots for whatever reason, both the big ones and the little ones. And they will come to your hand and eat them. Some more so than others, but if you're patient, they'll come and get them. And of course, the little chickies will eat almost anything they can get their beaks around. So let's see if we can give the little guys a little more food. Yep, there we go. Here you guys go. Okay. And then over against the wall there, in those little tiny cubicles, at the moment it looks like we have one breeder, and she's maybe two, with the fences across the front, and they're characteristic is that they go into a mode where they want to do nothing but sit on eggs and then raise their young chicks as they're born, as they're hatched. And so they don't eat much, they don't move much, all they want to do is brood, and they'll be in there in some cases for 2 or 3 weeks doing almost nothing but making sure that the next generation comes around. All right, a few more for you. All right, let's go out there and see all your other buddies here. The guinea fowl, once they're of a certain size, tend to stick together. You can see them kind of clustered up over there. And we've always been puzzled because occasionally there's a white guinea fowl, and you can see a couple of them mixed in with the gray ones. And we're not sure if those are sort of designated like a queen bee, where the other ones follow the white one because it's easier to see, or whether it's just sort of an odd mutation that happens once in a while. But it's kind of interesting. The one hen that you see too with sort of that vest on her back reflects the fact that she's often picked on by the roosters. And so we tend to, oftentimes when they're mating, the roosters will pluck off the feathers from the back of the hens. And there's a few hens in particular that they tend to concentrate on, and after a while the hens look pretty picked over, and so we try to identify those that seem to take the worst beating from the roosters and put on those vests that protect their back feathers a little bit. Isn't that so? They're surprisingly friendly. Again, they're a little bit nervous just because they're seeing kind of a different group than we usually get. But they're soft, they're friendly, they won't peck at you, and again, it's kind of nice to once in a while pick them up so that if there's ever an emergency and we have to evacuate the chickens, we can grab them without their panicking too much. You ready to be put down? You ready to go back to eating? All right, go ahead. I know, here you go. And this one coming up here is called the naked neck, as you can kind of see the reason why. Very odd looking chicken, but that's how they're born and that's how they grow up. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast. Some of the more exotic chickens are known as showgirls, and again, they tend to be some of the fluffier types with more exotic feathering. These guys, I think, are with the caramel colored feathers, are kind of a very typical, very productive chicken. They tend to be a little bit more friendly than the rest, oftentimes somewhat more accommodating to be fed by hand. If as a city born and bred kid, as you mentioned earlier, other than dogs and cats, we've really had no experience with animals like this. And so we really, at the start, we were afraid, or at least very cautious, even to go outside at nighttime, just not knowing what was out here, and certainly not interacting with the animals the way we do now. But you build up a confidence level, and of course they're in many respects as nervous about you, if not more so, than you are about them. And so I think once you can sort of find a peace with each other, then it becomes really a pleasure to come out here. And truthfully, it's very relaxing. I mean, they're just all they want from you is food and a little bit of attention. And so you can see once they're sort of broken in and not worried about anything that they haven't seen before, then they become very, very approachable, very friendly. That's it, guys. I think I'm pretty much out of ammunition here. There you go. So it's kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge, but this has been a wonderful dimension that has taken hold for us, and it's my first chore of the day.